Hello, everyone. Welcome to our technical summit. So I would like to walk you through the application lifecycle management for Microsoft Sustainability Manager. So starting with me, I am a principal solution architect at the customer and success partner success team within Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability Engineering team. So I put my LinkedIn handle if you would like to connect with me after the session. So I'm specialized in Power Platform and CRM, as well as led the initiative for Well Architected for Industry. So you can ask me about these items. So let's look at the agenda for the session. So maybe starting with the question why. So why do we and when should we have an ALM set for our sustainability manager implementation? And what should be the scope? So how is it different than a Power Platform implementation? And then we will maybe spend more time on how to set up a continuous integration and a continuous delivery pipeline using the Azure DevOps. And then we will also talk about different tools. So it's not only DevOps that you can use, so there are other options. So we will look at the comparison and then sharing some best practices at the end. And we'll leave 10 minutes for your questions and we'll try to answer those. So this is a detailed session, and application lifecycle management is a wider topic. And there are already some redress contents for Power Platform specific. As you know of, the Microsoft Sustainability Manager is built on top of Power Platform, so most of the recommendations and the way to promote solution from one environment to other is similar in the context of Power Platform. So you can look at these readiness content, and then in this session, I will go through some specifics for what you should add on top of for the Microsoft Sustainability Manager. Okay, let's start with the basic question. So why we should have an ALM for Microsoft Sustainability Manager? There are many reasons that you can think about, but maybe one of the core reasons is that you have some configurations like calculation profile, calculation models, reference data. So maybe you want to test this at an environment, and then whenever you think that is working properly, you would like to move this to the next environment or production. Also, your solutions and it's a best practice to have your solutions and configurations versions. So what it means, you can see the change of your data as well as your solution by time. Whenever you need, you can revert back to that given solution and configuration. As well as you can also relate these to your work items. So whenever you are planning a release, you know which configuration and which solution are associated to those. Something that really becomes more critical when you go live is to make sure you don't have regression whenever you have a new release. So you need to reduce it by adding some automated testing, which will also reduce your deployment errors and operations. Also, by time, you would like to make sure that all the environments are look at all your non-developed environments are look alike with the solution and data, so that you don't end up in a situation where one environment is working while the other not. So that you just need to have these things, automations, to make sure that all the environments are aligned with the same versioning, both solution and as well as the platform version. So after going first live, you may need to have multiple branching and multiple solutions to work with. So one of them is if there is a production issue, you need a hotfix. In the meantime, there can be some quick turnaround enhancement requests you may have, as well as maybe you are working on the next release. So these three scenarios will require 3 different branches to work on, and then some merging strategy, which will require an ALM approach for you. And lastly is that to improve the quality of your solution, you need to have gate reviews, pull request reviews, and also there are some Power Platform tools like Solution Checker that can help you to highlight if there is any performance or security issues with this release, so that you don't promote the solution without these things reviewed or addressed. Okay, so let's look at what is the ALM scope for MSM implementations. As I said earlier, it's a Power Platform solution, which means the development or your extensions are mostly promoted from one environment to another with a solution. So normally that's the best practice to have your dev environment as unmanaged solution. So you create a solution that you put your extensions, and then you take that solution as managed solution and move to your next environments. So on the left side, you see that solution-aware extensions are things you should put your extensions. So the things on the left are the basic Power Platform extensions that you have, as well as on the right side, you see the platform entities that are specific to MSM. So for example, if you have a data export from your Dataverse environment to a Synapse, so you can add your Synapse link profile here. Or if you have a data definition or a data flow template, you want to move between environments, you can add them to the solution as a platform configuration. And also emission source, custom connectors, and data import templates are also available to move between environments. So these are things that are in the solution-aware extension. However, in the Microsoft Sustainability Manager, there are also some data elements that are not solution-aware. So how we will approach for these? So, for example, some configuration settings like your organization profile, your reference data, some emission factors, your custom or extended calculation models and profiles and allocation profiles. So these are not solution aware. That's why you need to also create some additional tasks for this configuration data for those who you would like to move from one environment to another. Some implementations may need custom analytics and custom Azure integration components or AI models. So they are also part of the ALM scope, but in this session we will not go through those in detail. But just to note that these are also will be nice to part of the ALM scope. So before going to detail, so maybe looking at our data categories in Microsoft Sustainability Manager. So one category is configuration data. So it includes your organization data, your settings, as well as reference data that you include, that you will use in your calculation model, and also factor libraries or factor mappings. So these are all configuration data, which can be your scope for ALM. So it's an optional, but it is something if you would like to test and promote to the next environment, we suggest you adding these elements to your ALM scope. However, there are some data categories. They are either transactional or analytical, which doesn't require to be promoted between environments. For those, we don't suggest you adding them to ALM scope and move them between environments, such as purchase electricity is an activity data, so you don't need to move this data from one environment to another through ALM automation. Maybe you can just add them as a data import. So that's the transactional data. Analytical data is also in the similar pace. So whenever you have a calculated emission, you don't need to move this from one environment to another. So just move the activities and the profiles, calculation profiles, and it will calculate your analytics data. So that's also not part of the ALM scope. Okay, so let's look at the steps how you can build one ALM for your MSM implementation. So in your dev environment, you have your extensions and customizations. So it can be from the Power Platform, it can be from your analytics or Azure. So you basically take these to a source control. So this is the first step, which is the export. So for Power Platform, basically, you take your embedded solution that you have your extensions, and then you export this to your source control and unpack there. So unpack means take all that zip file and then export it to a folder where each individual element has its own XML file that will be residing in the source control. So that's the second step, is the source control, to have your all elements, as well as, for example, for data, the export schema to be added there. So this will be your environment where you can check the versioning as well as put a branching strategy overall. So that's the second step. And after this step, you can create your release pipeline where you can automate deployment from the source control to your non-development environments, maybe starting with your test environments, and then with gate reviews and controls, you can move it to the production as well. So that's the third step. So let's look at each step. So this, before maybe starting the first step, the export of the solution, maybe just a prerequisite for the data piece. So for you to export data from one environment to another, so you need to create a, if you will use the configuration migration tool, you need to create a data export schema. So to create this data export schema, you can maybe start by adding your entities to a dummy embedded solution where you just add their names. Here, as you see on the left, the calculation profile, emission calculation, emission factor, estimation factor, and factor library. So these are typical things you can add to your embedded solution without adding any fields, just the entity names. And then you run the configuration migration tool, which is available in your SDK. Power Platform SDK, or you can also find it in the XML toolbox. So you run it. There is this option, create schema. So after going to the next page, you will see that you can choose either a solution. So in our case, the data export schema solution that we put the entities. You can select all of them, add all of them, and then this will get you an export schema. So while doing this, why the first step is an optional? Because you can also go to your default solution and choose your entities one by one. And also you can define which fields to be included in the export. As well as you can add some filters. For example, if you have some test data there which you don't want to move between environments, so you may also exclude that by adding a filter to this export schema. So after finishing this, there's you can export this as an XML file, which you can put to your code repository. So under a folder like export schemas as an export schema XML. So these are things nice. You can rename it as you like, but these are things we will reference in the next step. Okay, so let's go and start with the first step, which is the solution export. For those who are familiar with the Power Platform build tools, there is already drag and drop style tasks that you can add to your build pipeline. So the first thing is to add the tool installer, just to initiate the SDK, and then for first thing to do is to publish customizations, so that anything that's not published is published, that you can include before exporting the solution. And then you can export as one unmanaged and then the other one is managed, so that you can put all these different versions to your code repo. And then we added unpack solution where you can unpack the solution to a code repo, so that each your, for example, custom tables or table extensions are added as its own individual XML file, where you can see them, what has changed by time, as well as you can relate these to a work item. The specific thing for MSM is this initial step, which is the Power Platform export data templates. So here, as you see, we are using the export data of the Power Platform build tool, and where you define your schema file, which we created in the previous slide, and then we also put where the data zip file will be stored. So we create another folder in the source code where we store all the exported data, and then we commit all these changes to the code repo, so that we get all these unpacked solution, managed solutions, data, zip file, all in the code repo. So this is your first build pipeline. So after that, what you need to do is to build from the code repo. So this is the second step. So you have everything in the code repo. Then you can, whenever you need a release, you just run this build pipeline where you can build from the code repo. Now we are going to the code repo, picking all the solutions, and then moving those things to the artifact folder. It's a best practice as well to have a statics file for each environment, so that whenever you have environment variables or something you need to adjust between environments, you can put them into a statics file. As well as we edit here, the export data files, we move to artifact folders so that we can use in the release pipeline. So this is the second step. So whenever you run this build pipeline for code repo, it will create the artifact, and then it will trigger the release pipeline, which you see on the right side. So here you see, for simplicity, we create a QA environment and a production environment. We add the tasks under each environment. So for QA environment, as you see, there is the import solution. So it basically takes the managed solution from which was previously created from the code repo. So it imports that solution, and then the next thing is to import the data from that data zip file. So we add that information here. So whenever you run these release, it will add your solution and your data into it. It will also give you number of records that failed or warning. So you can track all these within this pipeline. So this was a quick implementation using the DevOps, but there are also multiple options for the Power Platform. So these are the three options currently that you can use. So one of them is the Power Platform Pipelines, which is a very quick and easy way to set up your ALM. It doesn't require a code repo. It is basically the Power Platform admin center. You can quickly enable it, and then you can create a pipeline to move solution from one environment to another. The thing is, it doesn't move the test data. That's why maybe it may help you for moving your solutions, but not your configuration data. So one way you can do is to move your solution maybe using this solution, and then move your config data manually using the configuration migration tool. For longer engagements where you need to add additional steps into your pipeline, such as if you have a customization where you write a plugin and you want to make sure that it doesn't have security credentials in it, so you can add a code scanner, or before building the solution for deployment, you can add a solution checker as a step where you can check the solution whether it doesn't have any high risk items for performance and security. So you can add those type of things into your pipeline. As well as I mentioned earlier, you may have customizations for your Azure, or as well as your analytics. So it will require some additional pipelines and things. So that's why if you want to bring all these different extensions and customization ALM together, maybe DevOps and GitHub will be a better long-run solution for you, where it has the all source code and extension capabilities and a support. The third option is the ALM Accelerator. It is similar, a very quick and easy way to enable for your maybe initial ALM setup. So it has the open source tools and things that you can quickly enable, where you can set your pipelines. This is an accelerator, and it is supported by the PowerCat team. Maybe it's good to just do, maybe in the earlier days of the project you can use it, and then later on you can switch to other options. So some key takeaways for this session. So I think it's highly recommended to use a source code approach for versioning both your solutions and your configuration data, as well as try to think about what will be your branching strategy to avoid changes to be done directly in main branch. So maybe something on top of that you can put your pull request and so on. The second thing is that as I walk you through three different data categories, configuration data can be a good candidate to move data between environments. Either you use the configuration migration tool, which has also a PowerShell front that you can do, create a custom PowerShell script to move data between environments, as well as I showed in the demo, that there is also a task that you can add to your pipeline to use this feature. However, there are also some community-based tools that you can leverage under Xera Toolbox. They're also very good at moving data between environments. Also, it provides some comparison between your source and target environment, but it is manual, so it cannot be scripted to make it automated. But for the operation data, we suggest you using data import facility within MSM. So activity data should be treated as your operation data, and you should use the data import tool rather than potentially moving by configuration migration tool. Although it is technically possible to move small activity data using the configuration migration tool. However, the import of data, whenever you use data import, it automatically calculates your emission. That's why it's important to use that data import tool. So after setting up the basis, I think the next step is to further improve your pipelines by adding gate reviews, some automations like unit and integration testing to make sure that your promoted environment doesn't break, or you make sure that things are working before you promote your new environment. And also some additional steps like solution checker, security scaling, or static code checker for your customizations, which will give you also more visibility, as well as make sure you check these things in a cadence. Okay, so I think the previous session was related to deployment of your environment. I think it is related to your ALM environment strategy. So you can watch that one if you couldn't join the previous session. And I've also put some links here for the Power Platform ALM with DevOps, which has a step-by-step how to set up this environment in your own tenant. So feel free to go to this this link, as well as the other links that for us to be part of our journey.